detailed legal framework is also given in our work. So general conclusions are that renewable energy sources as potential in Serbia is almost unused. We have experts, educated staff, some problems with legal normative, but in past 2 years, some moves were made in that area. If you want to contact us, you have here information about. You have contact information here, and thank you for your attention. If you have some questions, we would likely want to answer you. Thank you.
Stefan and Svetomir, thank you very much for your interesting and interpretation of the power energy in Serbia. I think due to time restrictions, we should go on now with our last talk with Helmut Strasser. I think it will be a different view of energy, and afterwards we will then with Max conclude the symposium. But first, Helmut, please.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I want to do it short because our time is running out. As Martin told, I'm a little bit, my approach to energy is a little bit different. I'm a journalist and artist. And what I try to report today is I make a series of alternative energies for the American Senate. Like the thing was, how can you give a senator a compressed information of all the experts in the nation? And I was the director of the film, and I just want to pick out one thing we have heard today about oil producers, about electricity, about alternative energies. And there's one thing that in America, like it's energy politics is always a lobbying politic. So as long as Bush was president in America, it was the oil lobby ruling the thing. But parallel, a lot of think tanks, America has a very good system, which I think is a good thing to copy. Not everything from America is good to copy, but this, every country there have his own think tanks. And in these think tanks, they try not only technicians and business people, they also invited artists and so to come to new solutions. And oh no, I think it's better I do it from here. I want to pick up two things. Number one is how Americans go to alternative energies. For them, it's never a question of environment. It's also not even, I do it without, it's not even a question of money. Number one in America is always security. Keep our country safe. And is it not able to hear me? I hate this. Oh yeah. Okay.
Society, its way of life, if corrective action is not taken promptly. Let me be honest. The vision is realistic that in 20 years, this whole world could collapse. Because if things look bad in the Middle East now, look at what's going to happen when oil dependency and prices become 10 times the problem they are today. There is hope if we work at top speed that we can get the new cars on the road in 5 years so that we have 10 years to turn over the auto fleet so we just barely avoid catastrophe. If we don't change, our future is really at risk. We are in a scary situation. And everybody, whether you work for an oil company or anybody else, your future is in trouble. And the best we can do is to work as hard and as fast as we can to make this transition before it's too late.
If we lose just 2 million barrels a day, or 10%, the government can't even chart the impact on our society. It will become neighbor against neighbor, Mad Max, citizen against citizen, massive food shortages, unemployment, complete economic collapse. And the problem is, there is no plan in the United States to deal with this emergency. This is not energy independence. This is energy crisis. And no one is even discussing it. Not the Democrats, not the Republicans, not the White House, not the governors.
What you hear was not the entrance of a horror film. It's how American politicians and different foundation people think the situation about the traffic and the risk with oil in the transportation system. The situation is, in the transportation, 95% is all built up on oil. That I don't want to give you too much of these talking heads now. We interviewed the bosses of the CIA and different other people, and like this mister is, maybe you know. I sum it up. They see a big problem just in case of a political reason. For instance, if the Strait of Hormuz in the Gulf of Persia will be closed only for 3 weeks, America would run out of gasoline, and together the whole transportation system will break down. So they have only strategic reserves for 2 months. After 2 months, the whole country will stand still. And so this is the goal, how they say we have to find other solutions. And the solutions are different. They have the electric cars and so on. But of course, to the short time we have, I want to bring you the most interesting fact that we don't discuss in Europe here. America find out the best solution will be to use for the cars alcohol, ethanol. And so I will give you a short impression.
It lets you choose from day to day whether you want to use gasoline or ethanol or another very important fuel called methanol. And it lets you use mixed alcohols, a much broader range of biofuels. The other new technology is the plug-in hybrid car, which is just like a hybrid car, but it has a big battery, so it can go 40, 60 miles just on electricity, and a plug so you can recharge it from the electric power grid. Between those two technologies, you don't need to use a drop of gasoline if you decide you can't afford it.
This is a way to break oil's monopoly in the transportation sector. We don't generate electricity from oil. We essentially don't generate electricity from oil. So using electricity in our vehicles through plug-in hybrids is another way to introduce choice into the transportation sector. You can choose whether to put liquid fuel in your car or whether to fuel it with electricity or some combination of both. Your first 20 miles will be done on electricity. The rest of your driving will be done on liquid fuel.
So while we're really excited about the Teslas and the small companies of the world, we need companies like General Motors to make cars by the millions so that my mother can have one in her driveway and that the everyday third grade science teacher can be a part of the solution. People are concerned with how much it's going to cost to drive to work tomorrow. They're concerned about what they're leaving to their children. The only way to solve any of those things is to start.
By some estimates, it will cost $1 million per engine type to ensure that the vehicles with those engines will operate properly with either ethanol or methanol or a mix with gasoline. Say there are 100 engine types being put into America's cars today. That's $100 million. Were the government to cover the cost of that, it would be the equivalent to a day or two's worth of oil that we're buying from OPEC. It's an eminently manageable sum that would clear the way for the adoption of flexible fuel vehicles going forward for the bulk of the fleet.
This is an example how ethanol get made. Like they have in America, especially in the Midwest, huge areas where they grow wheat or other things. You can make everything.
What we do is we take number 2 yellow corn. We buy this from farmers. This is not the same kind of corn that someone would eat. It's field corn, and we take that into our ethanol production facilities. We add natural enzymes to this corn, which converts the starch in the corn to sugars, and then we add yeast, which converts the sugars to alcohol, 200 proof alcohol. It's clear, it's natural, and this is used as a motor vehicle fuel.
I'm Dean Fredrickson, the General Manager of Poet Biorefining in Mitchell, South Dakota. This plant started up approximately 2 years ago. It produces about 65 million gallons, or about 250 million liters of ethanol per year. We also produce, as a co-product, approximately 180,000 tons of dry distillers grains per year. This is our high-protein co-product that is fed to cattle, hogs, and various livestock. We belong to a group of 24 plants that produce ethanol at a rate of approximately 1.4 billion gallons a year.
Thanks to ethanol, the world price of grain is above the world cost of production. And this is allowing farmers to make money for the first time in a long time. And this is going to stimulate agriculture, not just in the United States, but on a worldwide basis, to not only feed the world, but with potential to fuel the world as well.
The anti-biofuel propaganda.
Just a short impression how the American plans, it's still a fight between the different lobbies, but technically it would be possible in America in between 15 years to get off in the whole transportation system, get off of gasoline and can substitute it with alcohol. It sounds strange to us because in Europe it's a kind of biofuel thing is a no-go. It's politically not correct, and because the thinking is if we use food for gasoline, people will starve because of that. So the typical thing in America is if you have a country with huge areas where, especially in the Midwest, it would be easy for them. The only question is, do they have enough water instead of rain, to get more and more area to get this thing done. The interesting thing, we don't know most of it. The first car sold more than 1 million. It was the Ford T model, and in the 1920s. And this car ran on alcohol. And then in America came the Prohibition time, when Al Capone and co. Take then the alcohol for the whiskey from the gas station. They decided to get off, get away from the alcohol and turn into the oil. And the strange thing is oil has less octane. And to put the